Now, the first step in deciding whether you have an asbestos-related lawsuit, once you've been diagnosed with a condition such as mesothelioma, lung cancer, asbestosis, is to determine how you could have been exposed. Most of the time, and a lot of our clients, certainly in the earlier years, had exposures in their workplace, and that's still common today. And there are lots of different places people can be exposed in lots of different trades, from pipe fitters to electricians to carpenters, at any kind of work site where asbestos could have been used either by that trade or by other trades, which involves bystander exposure. There can be a sufficient amount of exposure to cause disease. But the other type of exposure that we're seeing more and more as this litigation has gone on is exposure at home. And that exposure can occur in two different ways. Sometimes the person who worked on the job site brings his dusty clothes home, which is then laundered by his wife and his children, never realizing that what he's bringing home on him could cause a terrible disease in his family. Last thing a worker would ever want to do, someone who's working hard to make money for his family, to bring home a deadly carcinogen. But that's often what happens. The other type of exposure that you can have in your home are common everyday products that in the years up till about 1985 contained asbestos, such as floor tiles, your shingles on the outside of your home, roofing tiles, as well as joint compound that are used in your walls. So these are things that people used or had used on their homes that could have exposed them to asbestos. So there are lots of different ways that people can be exposed to asbestos.
The common thread in all of this is that asbestos was commercially exploited by the manufacturers of these products. Not only was it exploited, but it was specified for use on various equipment that our clients, the victims of exposure to asbestos, installed, maintained, and repaired. And so we find boiler makers, equipment maintainers, furnace repairmen who work on equipment that is insulated with asbestos, that has asbestos as component parts, and part of our job is to determine exactly where, exactly when, and exactly whose asbestos our clients were exposed to.
The client that I represented started off as a theater actress. That's what she wanted to be. Turned out that she couldn't really make it in the theater business like a lot of people who want to be actresses, so she went into the lighting design business. And so she worked on Broadway, but designing lights and setting up lights for Broadway productions. Little did she know that contained in those lights and contained in those theaters around her that she used to have to crawl in the spaces for to set up those lights was asbestos. And she developed at a very young age, with young children, mesothelioma. And this was the kind of disease that no one would ever expect to find in someone who did that kind of work. Most, you must have had a similar kind of experience.
Absolutely, Bob. I think the thread that runs through this is that asbestos doesn't discriminate who it harms. Just this year, we brought to trial the case of a 58-year-old who was poised at the time that he was diagnosed with mesothelioma to become the CEO of one of the major battery manufacturers in the United States, if not the world. Turns out that when he was in the battery development business in the early 1970s, he used raw asbestos fibers, small jars full of raw asbestos fiber, and we proved that it was those exposures for that short period of time that eventually led to his mesothelioma and his death.